All right, let's move on and try another one. Let's get some negative numbers in here. Let's say we have minus 5x plus 8 equals 42. And to solve this, we're going to go about it the same way. We want to get rid of the simplest operations first. We know our goal is to get x equals something. So we want to get rid of the plus 8 first. So we will do subtraction. So minus 8 on each side. And so these cancel out because plus 8 minus 8 is just 0. And get minus 5x equals 42 minus 8 would be 34. And now dividing everything to cancel out this multiplication, right? Because we have minus 5 times x. We want to divide by whatever we're multiplying by. So even though it's a negative number, we are still going to divide by a negative number here. And so minus 5 divided by minus 5, as long as it's the same thing on the top and bottom, it doesn't matter if they're both negative, this would be a positive number. And we do know that negative divided by negative is a positive anyways. And we have 34 divided by negative 5. That does not simplify. 35 does not go into 34. So you just get x equals minus 34 fifths. If you want it as a whole number or a mixed number, you can do that. 5 goes into 34 6 whole times, and there's 4 left over. So minus 6 and 4 fifths. Though honestly, it's easier to work with if it's a fraction. So let's check our work here. We want to make sure we did this right. I mean, we think this is the answer. And at this point, when you do find an answer, that's all you have. You think that this is the answer, but you don't know for sure until you check. So we have to do that every time. And so by checking, we're just going to plug in x equals minus 34 over 6 into the, minus 34 over 5 into the equation wherever x was. So you get minus 5 times minus 34 over 5 plus 8. And the question is, does this equal 42? And we have two negatives multiplying together. So that's going to make it a positive. And then you have 5 in the top and 5 in the bottom. So those are going to cancel. And so you just get 34 plus 8, which does equal 42, which means we can feel confident that this is the right answer. All right, let's try at least one more. Let's say we have 4 times x plus 3 equals 32. Now, this type of problem, in effect, could become a 3-step equation. Once we start dealing with equations with parentheses, most of the time we will just distribute this and get 4x plus 12 equals 32, and then treat it like a normal 2-step equation. However, there is a way to do this in just 2 steps. So whenever you have multiplication on the outside and it's just equal to this whole number over here, we can do division to start off. This is one of the rare exceptions where it makes more sense to do the more complicated operation first. Because if I divide each side by 4 to cancel out this multiplication here, 4 divided by 4 is just 1, and I just get x plus 3. And technically you have 1 times x plus 3, but you don't have to write that. And 32 over 4 is 8. And 1 times anything is itself. So we can drop the parentheses here. You just get x plus 3 is 8. And to cancel out addition, we will subtract minus 3 on each side, and you get that x is 5. So you can still do this in 2 steps, but if you'd prefer, and especially after learning how to deal with equations with parentheses, you can just distribute and simplify it that way and then treat it like a normal equation. In fact, most of the time that's what I do, because this does not always simplify to a whole number. In fact, most of the time it doesn't. The problem has to be set up specifically so that this would simplify to a whole number. So if it doesn't simplify to a whole number, I always just distribute. It really just depends. But when you do the practice problems, you will see some questions like this. So just to see another one, if you had minus 6 parentheses a minus 9 equals, let's say, 30, you can again use division as your first step because 6 does go into 30 equally. I mean, it'll be a negative number, but that's okay. So we'll divide each side by minus 6. And these cancel out. We get a minus 9. We can drop the parentheses because we effectively have 1 times a minus 9, and 1 times anything is itself. 30 divided by 6 is 5, but we have 1 negative, so the negative's got to come along. And to cancel out subtraction by 9, we're going to add 9 to each side. And minus 5 plus 9 would be positive 4. You could switch the order, plus 9 minus 5. 9 minus 5 is 4. And when you plug in 4 here, you have 4 minus 9, which is negative 5. So you have minus 6 times minus 5, which does equal 30. Which means since we plugged this back in and we got the right answer, we can feel very confident that A does in fact equal 4.